All right. Good morning, everybody. Mike Courtney here, Mass Mutual, Eastern Pennsylvania. It is a beautiful, chilly Wednesday morning here in Southeastern PA. Hope everybody is getting ready for the holidays and getting ready for some good winter activities. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and counterpart, Steve Parisi from IBC Global. Steve, how are you today?
Fantastic, Mike. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. Today we want to talk about something that is near and dear to both of our hearts, and we're going to call this Golden Rule conversation. And we just want to talk a little bit about like basic respect and courtesies when dealing with clients, when dealing with internal business partners, external business partners, anybody that you come across. I always think, Steve, about I had a boss one time who was kind of a combative guy. We got along really well, but he really talked down to people a lot and belittled people, and it was tough to work for. I'll never forget, before I really got to know him, we went out to lunch one day, and I had a long history of when I was younger working in restaurants and delis, and when I was a kid. And then later on, I was a bartender when I was working my way through college. And so I knew a lot about customer service and, how to maximize my tips, which was, came from good service and, service with a smile. And I remember watching this guy, how he would deal with wait staff. And it was so embarrassing. I remember a couple of times going out to lunch with him, walking out, leaving the restaurant and telling him I had to use the bathroom and going back in and throwing another $5 or $10 on the table for an extra tip and apologizing to a waitress because he was just so nasty. And I think it's really interesting to watch how people treat other people regardless of the relationship.
Yeah.
What is your basic response when dealing with someone? Is it warm and inviting and friendly, or is it, are you snapping somebody's head off day one for no reason?
Yeah. So I try never to do the last thing that you mentioned, snap someone's head off. And the main reason why is because I've been on the other side of that. I think everyone has been on the other side of that in one area or another in their life. And you don't like it. Like it's something we typically remember. It's a negative experience. And it makes us not want to communicate with the person that treated us like that.
Right.
So how I view it is every time that I'll communicate with someone, whether it's on the phone, a Zoom call, in person, maybe it's email communication, which we really have to pay attention to. Same thing with text messaging, is when I get a question or response, or you can tell someone is tense about something or they're not coming at you positive because they're upset. How you respond to that is, in my opinion, as equally as important as equally important to the actual material that you're providing, right? The message. So maybe they're asking a question about how to maximize the cash value in a life insurance policy or how much they can borrow. There's a misunderstanding of the values. Like how you say that is so important. It's so important. I don't want to say, well, it's this much. Well, you were mistaken about the value you thought. Like, no, don't say things like that. No, it's this much. It's $100,000. Oh, I thought I could borrow 150 based on what I saw before. Oh, I'm sorry. I might have miscommunicated that. I know a lot of times it can be confusing because you got all those different columns and figures on the charts and on your online portal, but you'll actually see the exact value right here. I overlooked that before too. Does that make sense? I can definitely talk through it further with you.
Also, in that kind of scenario, I think it's important for agents and advisors or
Yeah.
salespeople in general when they're dealing with clients to remember that, you're reviewing something that you look at and delve into every single day.
Yes.
And, these, even if you're dealing with a very astute and sharp and self-educated client when it comes to whatever you're working on, they still don't have the same kind of working knowledge that you do and the ability to kind of jump from topic to topic and always follow along. So, and you have to be respectful of that.
You do. Remember that they're not doing this for a living like you are. One of the things that drives me nuts, and I train our team on not to ever do this is when someone asks a question that they have asked before, perhaps even multiple times, and you've answered it thoroughly every time, is never come back and say anything like, well, like I said before. No, that can turn people off. We discussed this before. It's like, you gotta be careful of that. Because if you do that, you're going to make the person feel like, oh, did I forget? Am I annoying this person? I don't want to ask them questions again. It can come off hurtful to them. You might not mean that at all, but that doesn't matter. They're not going to tell you, especially if you're working with them remotely, right? So if I'm working with someone who lives in Texas, right, halfway across the country, and it's all virtual, like you don't have that human element, and I can't run into them the next day and clear the air or anything like that. That's more challenging to do. So how you communicate and always being respectful, considerate, apologize when you found out you messed up, even if you feel you didn't do anything wrong, but you offended them, making the peace goes such a long way.
Yeah, you want to smooth it over, even if even if you don't think that you said anything out of line. If it was perceived as such, then you've got a riff, and you have a split that needs to be resolved.
Yeah, work it out. Work it out. All right. Drop the ego. That's so important. Well, this is what I meant, so they should just understand. Like, no. If you're a professional and you're in business, help the other person. And you'll be viewed as not only a professional, but a very, very nice and approachable advisor as well. And when people feel that they can approach you, guess who else they're going to feel comfortable approaching you? People they know. They're going to refer you individuals, right? So that's key there. Never belittling anyone, speaking to them how you like to be spoken to or how you like to be treated. If you do that, you can do this with email very easily too. Before you hit send, look at your email, read it aloud, and say, hey, how's the tone in this? Right. Maybe have someone else read it. Hey, that might come off kind of blunt.
Yeah, if it's an important email with a lot of detail in there and a lot of, kind of back and forth, or something you're trying to resolve, it's a good idea to have somebody else take a look for sure.
Yeah, do that. And if it's a tense situation, or I know, like this is going to be difficult, what I might do is put a short recording together as well. This way they can see and hear my tone when I put it together. Like, okay, here's the actual situation. They're trying to help me. I don't need to be upset here. If it's an extremely tense situation, and we're communicating via email and text, I'll try and call them, right? Just because that does help. Just pick up the phone and call them. Address it right away, because you would appreciate it if you were on the other side of that. So again, it always comes back to, if I were on the other side of this, what would I like and what would I not like? Don't do what you don't like. That's the big thing.
And I think it's important to understand that when we're talking to, a lot of times the audience for this podcast is agents and advisors.
Yeah.
This doesn't just go for client relationships. I mean, this is everybody. So as an example, Steve and I do a lot of work together, and I'm constantly interfacing with people in his office, and everyone in his office is polite, professional, courteous. When anything that they ask for, they're not like groveling at my feet, but they're respectful of my time, and understand that in a relationship like this, there's going to be times when I need things from Steve's office, and there's going to be times when Steve's office needs things from me or my team. And you're really going to maximize those relationships if everybody is professional, courteous, respectful of each other's times. Yes. There's a long history in the insurance business. I think the old school mentality was much more. I remember working in places where the producers really beat up on staff, both external and internal, really beat up on underwriters in a nasty way. And some of the older brokers that I've dealt with over the years, we've had to shut that down a little bit in a real way. I told you the story of, we used to have this broker from this one agency who would call into our office. It got to the point where no one in the office would answer the phone when they would see his number come up. They would just immediately dump him into my voicemail. And then he would leave me this irate voicemail about how he can't get anybody on the phone. And it got to the point where I did confront him and say, look, nobody wants to take your call because, you're combative with everybody. And there's not even anything to be combative about. Somebody's just answering the phone.
Yeah.
And we dealt with a lot. There was a lot of that. That's all changed. I feel like the
Nice.
world in that respect has definitely softened a little bit, and that generation has faded, or that way of doing business. I think there were certain people that thought in order to command respect, you had to just walk around swinging a stick all day. I don't know. I never really understood it, but I
Yeah.
think some people achieved some level of success and thought that they got there by just beating up anybody that got in their way, or
They could
anybody who
have.
fell out of line. And,
Mhm.
it's a
Yeah,
shame.
yeah, perhaps their boss or manager did that in the past. It is common, right? Just working in the financial
Yeah.
services industry, I have seen that a lot at other places I've worked for in the past. But at the same time, you see people that don't operate like that, and they do very well too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, how
And
you
that's who
work.
you want to work with. That's who anybody would. And also, I mean, from the selfish perspective, do you think that somebody's going to jump through hoops for someone who's just like constantly berating them, or from someone who like respects their time and is treating them with respect?
Yeah, it's the latter, obviously, right? And that's the big thing to realize too, because in the industry, that does happen still, where people are negative toward their peers or toward underwriters or toward customer service reps because they just want something. Maybe the client said something to frustrate the agent, and the agent is like, "Okay, I got to fix this right now," and they don't get the answer they immediately want from a customer service rep or someone like you at an insurance company, and then they get angry and they want to fix it right away, and
Yeah.
emotions are getting the better of them. That happens, like we're human. But when you do that, first apologize, right? Make sure you do that. And then second, think, okay, how can I try and get a solution here? And how can I do it in a respectful way? It's not just picking up the phone and trying to figure out, all right, I'll just figure out what I'm going to say on the phone. No, take some time and think through the situation. What am I going to say here? When we have issues with clients and we can't solve it internally because there's a problem in Mass Mutual software or FieldNet, whatever it might be, it's like, okay, we still need to get the solution for the client. We can't just wait on Mass Mutual. So how I view it, and so our team does the same, is we don't want to waste Mike's time or anyone else's time at the company. Their role is not to serve us. They're like, no, that's not. We're working together. That should be the mindset. So what we'll do is say, all right, here's the issue. I think that they're going to have a hard time understanding this unless they spend hours just starting at the beginning and understanding the situation. Right?
Right.
That's your time there. So we know the situation. Here's what I'll do. Let's first put it together. I'll usually type it out on a notepad or Word document. Steps 1, 2, 3. Here's the issue. Here's the solution. Here's the big thing in Mass Mutual system that is not working right now. Here's what we want to do. We can't do it right now. So here is a mock-up, right? Here's the same concept of a different product that I'll put together showing exactly what the client wants to do. We just want to do it with this option. And here's all the information and pointing to it. So this way, when you get it, you can spend hopefully 5 minutes instead of 5 hours looking at it and say, okay, got it. Now I can provide it to whoever I need to and try and get to the solution there. Trying to make life easy and then doing it in a respectful manner, like that's so important to do. Because you'll be more responsive. And then when issues pop up, we can fix them faster.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd really like to stress to everybody. I mean, this is so important. Like I said before, not just when dealing with clients, but just really everybody in honestly, in your personal life too. This is,
Yeah.
uh, you know, this isn't something that is a business strategy or business practice. This is life practice. I mean, there's no reason that you shouldn't be treating everybody with the utmost respect.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do, you are going to be more approachable and people will feel more comfortable working with you. That's so important. Like I cannot tell you how many times we've had situations where someone reached out to our company. They were initially interested in a policy because they liked the way that was set up. They saw more cash value in the policy. But they expressed, I went to my agent first and the agent like yelled at me or they said, hey, this is how it works. Like, what are you even looking at that stuff for? You should just be coming to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I understand that someone can be frustrated or defensive, especially when money's involved. But at the same time, think of it like if I said to
Is
you,
that
hey,
the approach to make sure you retain those people as
no,
clients?
no. What if I said to you, hey, pretend you're my client, hey, what are you watching these other videos about whole life insurance for? If you have a question about it, like, just come talk to me. Like, what are you doing? If I said that to you, how do you feel? Like, what's your initial reaction and you wanting to talk to me?
It would be a little bit of a turnoff. Like I don't have the kind of brain power to be like poking around and looking at things on my own and then bringing it to you as an open question. I mean, I would think as an advisor, I'd be happy. You'd be happy that I was coming to you at
Yeah.
all, as opposed to just running down another road,
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of times people have that mentality, what you just expressed. They're doing research, they're curious, they want to bring
Yeah.
it to their guy or girl, and they're saying, hey, what's going on here? What will turn people off is like, hey, what are you doing? You shouldn't even be looking at this. It's like, no, stop it. We've all looked at other things. Like we get a car with one company and then we look at it, the same car with a different company or a different dealership. Hey, why does it cost less money over here? Whatever it might be, give people that same consideration and say, hey, thanks so much for bringing that to me.
I'm glad you brought this. I'm glad you brought this up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then just talk through it. So
We're in this together.
exactly. And now all of a sudden you solidify yourself as that person's guy or girl, like you're their agent. They're going to come to you with questions. You can thoroughly answer them as opposed to being defensive or trying to attack the content or something like that they brought to you. Like if you do that, what might happen to you? They're going to reach out to the person that created that content because they want clarity. They're trying to understand it. So know what the other person is truly trying to obtain and then help them. Like that's what's going to help you.
It also gives off the impression that, anybody who is savvy knows that there's always two sides to a story. And the initial response of why are you looking into that? You should have just come to me. That gives the impression right away to me that this person only wants me to see this one side of the story. They don't want me to see the other side of the story where, you have to embrace that. And, maybe there's some things that I think it's embarrassing for people sometimes because it makes them look like they're not up to speed on everything. But that's okay. We're, show both sides of the story or at least embrace both sides of the story.
Yeah, that's so important. If you're not up to speed on a certain question that someone's raising to you, like that's okay. One of the best things you can do is drop the ego, which is so important. I've heard that a million times from a really, really good investment banker at Goldman Sachs. He has trainings online or speeches at the I think it's the University of West Virginia or something like that with law students. But he's very good at what he does. And what he encourages these future investment bankers, which could be a field that I would think a lot of ego might exist in, is drop the ego. And here's a guy all the way at the top from a success level. It's like, drop it. Do not do that. Right? Always talk to the client properly. When you look at his principles, like what he's teaching, it's really just treat others how you want to be treated. Like that's what it boils down to. But if you do that, like with your peers and with clients, things will go well. Sometimes you got to practice it, meaning before you say something to a person, say it aloud or type it and then read it aloud and then talk to people like, hey, how can I convey this message? Like I'm really angry and I want to be able to get an answer about this life insurance policy or just tell the client, they should get it this way. Like, okay, if I came and said to you, well, you should just get this, like we talked about a million times, the relationship's over, right? And your reputation's hurt. Ask your friend or your spouse, like, how could you say this to me where I'm going to be receptive to you? And that's working through it. Like that's what you got to do, which takes time, but that's being a pro, in my opinion. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, guys. Well, as you said, these are always our opinions.
Yes.
Steve and I talk about things that have helped us have success and operating your business and your personal life according to the principles of the golden rule, which is our favorite. I think is a really clear path to increase success and happiness, both in business world and in your personal life. So if anybody wants to have any kind of follow-up conversations about this or learn about, I've been surprised over the years how much of this has been a part of my business world, talking to people about how to craft emails or how to, handle certain conversations, how to respond to people in a certain way, how to be, respectful with external and internal partners on the business side. It goes a long way and will help you achieve much success if you can get that part of it right.
Yep.
So if anybody has any follow-up, wants to talk to either myself or Steve, feel free to reach out at any time. My name is Mike Courtney. This is Steve Parisi. I hope everybody has a great week. Steve, thanks. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Mike. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.